I'm Dr. Lars Dingman. You can follow me everywhere at iTunes Psychic and subscribe to my free iTunes podcast, Psychic Circus. And I'll see you in the future. I'm Dr. Lars Dingman. You can follow me everywhere at iTunes Psychic and subscribe to my free iTunes podcast, Psychic Circus. And I'll see you in the future. I'm Dr. Lars Dingman. You can follow me everywhere at iTunes Psychic and subscribe to my free iTunes podcast, Psychic Circus. And I'll see you in the future. I'm Dr. Lars Dingman. You can follow me everywhere at iTunes Psychic and subscribe to my free iTunes podcast, Psychic Circus. And I'll see you in the future. I'm Dr. Lars Dingman. You can follow me everywhere at iTunes Psychic and subscribe to my free iTunes podcast, Psychic Circus. And I'll see you in the future. I'm Dr. Lars Dingman. You can follow me everywhere at iTunes Psychic and subscribe to my free iTunes podcast, Psychic Circus. And I'll see you in the future. I'm Dr. Lars Dingman. You can follow me everywhere at iTunes Psychic and subscribe to my free iTunes podcast, Psychic Circus. And I'll see you in the future. I'm Dr. Lars Dingman. You can follow me everywhere at iTunes Psychic and subscribe to my free iTunes podcast, Psychic Circus. And I'll see you in the future. I'm Dr. Lars Dingman. You can follow me everywhere at iTunes Psychic and subscribe to my free iTunes podcast, Psychic Circus. And I'll see you in the future. I'm Dr. Lars Dingman. You can follow me everywhere at iTunes Psychic and subscribe to my free iTunes podcast, Psychic Circus. And I'll see you in the future. I'm Dr. Lars Dingman. You can follow me everywhere at iTunes Psychic and subscribe to my free iTunes podcast, Psychic Circus. And I'll see you in the future. I'm Dr. Lars Dingman. You can follow me everywhere at iTunes Psychic and subscribe to my free iTunes podcast, Psychic Circus. And I'll see you in the future. I'm Dr. Lars Dingman. You can follow me everywhere at iTunes Psychic and subscribe to my free iTunes podcast, Psychic Circus. And I'll see you in the future. I'm Dr. Lars Dingman. You can follow me everywhere at iTunes Psychic and subscribe to my free iTunes podcast, Psychic Circus. And I'll see you in the future.
Works. Hey everyone, welcome back to Psychic Circus. This week is going to be a little different. We're going to be talking all about UFOs, aliens, and who built the pyramids. But we have a special guest with us today. Welcome, Timothy Hogan.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Lars Dingman, the iTunes Psychic. Wonderful to have you here. We are here, beautiful, La Quinta, California, at the Psychic Conference. We do this every year. Psychics from around the world come to La Quinta. And usually it's a big deal with people in conventions and breakout rooms and things like that. But because of COVID, we had to send out an email. Luckily, all of us are psychics. So all of the people who knew they were going to be ill or potentially harboring the virus did not come this year. So it's very safe. We've been social distancing and wearing masks. And it's been a wonderful opportunity to hobnob with my fellow wizards, if you will, and talk to psychics from around the world. Every psychic has its own way in to tuning into their psychic energy. And I find it often fascinating to talk to other psychics who don't do it the particular way that I do it. I'm also very excited for the guest that we have on the program tonight. We are going to delve into the ancient mystery schools. If you don't know what that is, stick around and you will. Our guest is a Mason. Our guest is a Knights of Templar. I'm assuming he's also a Rosicrucian. He is a best-selling author. He lectures around the world, and he has information and knowledge about how exactly the pyramids were built, who was behind the building of the pyramids, and life after death. So a lot of cool topics we're talking about here on this Saturday, March 5th to 6th, whatever it is. I don't know. So let's welcome to the program Timothy Hogan. Welcome to the program, Timothy.
Hi, good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. My one concern in preparing for your interview is you wear so many hats. I'm trying to make this as digestible as possible for people. We have a UFO video we're going to show in a little bit. Why don't we start with this, Tim? I think the general public has a lack of deep knowledge of what the ancient mystery schools were, the Hermetic teachings, Egypt, the Knights of Templar, the Freemasons, all of that. Can you give us a quick background on what this information is and why it has been passed down from generation to generation in the kind of way that it has, kind of apart from society and only certain people knowing about it?
Sure. Well, the mystery school tradition, it's believed it was started far back in ancient Egypt, certainly ancient Sumer, something that was passed on by Phoenician traditions, early the early Greeks and Eleusinian mysteries.
And this is how many thousands of years ago are we talking?
Well, the earliest, I guess, recorded descriptions of mystery school instruction taking place was in Egypt, and it goes back to about 3,500 BCE. So, we're talking about 5,000 years ago.
Okay, so a while ago.
A while ago.
Right.
And there's been different manifestations of it over the centuries. Certainly by the 1100s, of our current era, the Knights Templar were established, and they were trying to go around to different places within the Middle East, within Europe, and even parts of Africa and Asia, and they were trying to kind of connect the pieces of these earlier mystery traditions and bring them back into focus. Some say they even traveled to the New World prior to Columbus and was trading silver with the Mayans. And meeting with different tribes in North America, and then and then by the what would be the late 1500s, early 1600s, it kind of took on a new expression as being known as Rosicrucianism, and by the 1700s, it became known as Freemasonry. So that's kind of a general history of
Right.
it, I
And
guess.
what is this knowledge? What this is obviously not regular math or science or things that are taught in regular schools. These are more esoteric pieces of information and knowledge. What are they, and why are they been kept so secret? What's the big deal?
Well, it was the study of the what was believed to be the cosmic principles behind creation itself, the mysteries of life and death,
Right.
aspects of the different bodies of the human being. You know, the physical body, the emotional body, psychic body, soul, and how those can be, utilized in different ways. Also, the study of alchemy was fundamental to the early mystery traditions.
Now I've seen Fantasia, the movie, the
Mhm.
animated movie with Mickey Mouse, and is that what he's doing
Yeah.
down the Sorcerer's Apprentice? Was he doing alchemy?
Well, I he was certainly
Because it goes
causing some
completely off the
mischief.
rails. I don't know if you remember Fantasia,
Yeah, he
but
does.
he starts the mopping and then there's water everywhere. It's just a big shit show. Big shit show.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I mean, I think there's a lesson in there, something about if trying to impose your will on things, you can start to juggle a whole lot of things, but at a certain point, if it gets out of hand, it'll consume you, you
Yeah,
know.
and Mickey Mouse was not
So
known as a very talented multitasker per se. He had comedy
no,
gifts, but you wouldn't have him organize your office for you or fold your clothes while you were talking to a client and doing other things.
probably not,
No,
probably
not
not. He
Mickey.
was he was
Pluto,
known for
big
other
multitasker.
things. Yeah.
So, can you give us some of the things that these ancient mystery schools know that the public does not? Like, does life continue after the death of the body?
Yeah, so that was definitely a fundamental part of the mystery school tradition, which
Sure.
is even uh, it's illustrated within the mystery rites of traditions like Freemasonry today. Oftentimes, what these mystery schools would do is they would have rituals that were designed um, to impact all the senses and to cause experiences that, if they were done right, the person would have an out of body experience. And if you had an out of body experience that and you're able to see that your consciousness transcends your physical body, then the natural extension is, well, then what does your consciousness do after death? And it was always taught that, yeah, actually your consciousness survives death of the physical body. And there've been a number of doctrines that have certainly taught uh, the idea of reincarnation as well.
Mm-hmm.
Not all mystery schools have that as a dogma, but they certainly allude to it.
Right.
Um, and you can see that, even if you go back to the Greeks, for example, Pythagoras, he believed in the doctrine of reincarnation. Certainly, you find it within Buddhism and Hinduism,
Yeah, it's
but you
spread
also,
all over the world, all different cultures, cultures that were not known to have been in contact, come up with the
yeah,
same concepts and ideas, which leads you to believe that there's some kernel of truth to them.
that's right. Not only do they have the same doctrines, but oftentimes they had the same rituals that they were doing. These different traditions were doing the same, rituals, and which means that either there was a lot more contact in the ancient world than we give it credit for, or there was a third party that was teaching all of these ancient civilizations these things, these lessons, and so they were all just preserving them, or they were all through their, the third possibility is through their own internal work, they were coming to the same conclusions.
Right.
So
Well, and now I think
yeah,
with the internet and digital communications, people that used to have weird isolated experiences, they have a dream where they're out of their body floating around, or they're having what we call now out of body experiences or strange things. There, in the past, there was no one they could tell, so they wouldn't tell anyone, and they would think they dreamed it. But now, so many people do it, and they report it online. That the concept of being out of the body, leaving, having an out of body experience is more or less mainstream, and I think you're right. What
yeah.
if your consciousness can leave your physical body while you're alive? It stands to reason that after you die, it goes somewhere as well, right?
That's right. That's right. And oftentimes, the rituals that would be done by these mystery traditions
Mm-hmm.
actually simulated, symbolic death of the person. And so they would go through a symbolic death. They would have this out of body experience, and then they'd be brought back, and it was designed to be like a kind of like a precursor or a preview for to prepare oneself for the actual transition, the actual death later
Is that
on.
what the Egyptians were doing in their pyramids?
Yes, I do believe so. I mean, I think that was part of it. I think the Great Pyramid was used as a almost like a lens, if you will, for the Earth,
Uh-huh.
and that the king's was where the king's chamber is. There is a sarcophagus in that king's chamber. They've never found anybody ever buried in there, and they've never even found hieroglyphs in there for that matter. But verifiable hieroglyphs, I should say. But yeah, the mystery tradition has suggested that the pyramid was used for a number of things, but one of which was used for initiations. And in fact, I can say as a Templar, I performed Templar initiations in the Great Pyramid in 2011. And
Inside the
the
Great Pyramid?
yes, inside the Great Pyramid, and
Wow.
the rituals we were doing were designed to cause people to have one of these out of body experiences and to witness things that you wouldn't normally witness.
And what did you
So,
see on that night? Can you tell us, or are you born sworn to secrecy?
well, I mean, I was initiating the people, so I can't tell you what they saw, but I can tell you, having gone through it myself, that your consciousness is projected elsewhere, and it is outside of your body, and you are elsewhere, and there are other beings that are there with
So
you
it's
in
like you
this
go to
other
a
area.
cloakroom, a psychic cloakroom somewhere where there are disembodied people just hanging like a cocktail party. What is it? Are you off
Ca-
planet? Are you out of the
eh,
galaxy? Are you in like a
I,
closet in
I,
Pittsburgh? Where are you?
I think it's actually off of this earth. Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I think it may be almost like my assessment of it is it's almost like a Stargate that does take you elsewhere. Now,
Wow.
where that was, I mean, there's different theories on that. I mean, certainly the pyramids are the three pyramids uh, in the Giza Plateau are aligned with the three stars of Orion's belt. Uh, Robert Bouval was the historian who and archaeologist, Egyptologist who figured that out, and
But the alignment,
um,
I believe the alignment, and the Nile River functions as the Milky Way. I thought the
that's correct.
alignment was, if you roll back the precession of the equinoxes, it was pointing to a time like 10,400 years ago, not 5,500 years ago. Is that accurate or
Yeah,
no?
that's correct. Yeah, and it talked to the Egyptian myths talk about the Zep Tepi, which was the kind of the time before
Recorded
humans were
history?
ruling Egypt. Yeah, it was the early history, the early history. But yeah, it does. It points back to a time, and also the Sphinx, by the way, also seems to align with
Right.
this time period of about 10,500 uh,
Years ago, which tells
before
me
our current era. Yep.
that somebody built those pyramids then. Now, those limestone blocks are 2 and 3 tons apiece. All of the stories that I've read about how supposedly they were built by Egyptian slaves or they floated things down the river, all these ideas of how they physically constructed the pyramids sound like complete BS to me. It doesn't sound possible. How were these monuments built almost 11,000 years ago? I think it's got to be. And who built them? Was it humans or was it some sort of intelligence from off planet? What do you think?
Well, I think there was definitely some higher technology that was being utilized. I think some of the knowledge of that technology was preserved within the mystery traditions, within the sciences of alchemy in particular. I can tell you, and this is something that will come out in the news, maybe 10 years from now. But I can tell you right now, you'll hear it now, and then people can think back to this program. When I was in Egypt in 2011, one of the things we were looking at was the research of there was a scientist by the name of Gattenbrink. He's a German scientist, and he sent this robot up these passages. There's these passages that are perfectly aligned, and they're maybe 8 inches or 10 inches wide, and then just shoot out towards the outside of the pyramids.
From you're talking about the Great Pyramid, the big one.
Correct. Right. So like there's the Queen's Chamber and the King's Chamber, and there's these passages that go out there, and Gattenbrink sent a little robot up one of these passages, and he discovered a door, and this made international news, right?
I remember reading about it.
Yeah, and then what he did is he drilled a little hole in the door. He sent this robot up, and he drilled a little hole in the door, and he put a little fiber optic camera through that hole and looked further up the passage, and he saw another door, and that was also made public. But what was not made public at the time was that Gattenbrink also took that camera, and he looked at the back side of the door. And on the back side of the door, there was writing. There was these spiral hinges, like hinges for the door, these spiral-looking hinges that seem to be metal. And then there's writing on the back of the door. And the writing on the back of the door is not Egyptian. And the problem with this is that door had to have been put in there when the pyramid was built. And we don't know what the writing is. I looked at it to try to compare and figure out, if it was an ancient, some particular ancient writing. It wasn't any ancient writing that I'm familiar with. And Gattenbrink was so freaked out by the whole thing that he just completely walked away from the project, because it implies, that whoever built the pyramid weren't the Egyptians that were told built the pyramid, number one. And number two, whoever put that door there knew that it wouldn't be discovered until someone had the technology to send a little robot up there to see it.
Right. And it's a way of announcing yourself to a future peoples who are significantly advanced enough to find it, right? Because you don't want to tell. Yeah. So, wow. So it's possible that the Egyptians, as we know them, the 5,500 year ago Egyptians, landed in that area in Africa, and those pyramids were already there, and they just made it seem like, oh, it's cool, we built these.
Yeah, that's right. You find a similar thing with for example, for the longest time, the Aztecs were ascribed to the pyramids at Teotihuacan. Even though the Aztecs themselves, down in Mexico, said, oh, these were already here when we got here. We just kind of took them over. And it's only been within the last year, in fact, that they discovered Mayan artifacts deep down in these tunnels underneath those pyramids. So now archaeologists are saying, well, maybe the Mayans built them, but they don't even really know that for sure. I mean, they could have been built by someone other than the Mayans, and that the Mayans just kind of dug down there. And it's the same way with the Egyptians.
Which all of it, I think this leads to the big question. I mean, one of two things is true. Either we are the only intelligent life in the galaxy / universe, or there's more life than us, right? One of those things has to be true. I think statistically, it's almost impossible for us to be the only intelligent life in the universe. There's billions of stars, and just, it would be much more amazing if we were it. So I think you've got to assume that there's other intelligent life off planet.
Well, let me read to you a passage from the Royal Annals of Tutmosis III. He was the he was credited with many, within the Egyptian tradition of setting up the first schools in Egypt. And this is what his royal annals say. It says, in the year 2, 3rd month of the winter, 6th hour of the day, the scribes of the House of Life found that a circle of fire was coming in the sky. Its body was 1 rod long and 1 rod large. Their hearts became confused through it, and they laid themselves on their bellies. Now, after some days had passed over, lo, these fire circle discs were more numerous than anything. They were shining in the sky more than the sun to the limits of the 4 supports of heaven. Powerful was the position of the fire circle discs. The army of the king looked on, and his majesty was in the midst of it. Then, later, Tutmosis III writes, they opened for me the doors of heaven. They spread open for me the portals of its horizon. I flew up to the sky as a divine falcon, that I might see their mysterious ways in heaven. I was made full with the understanding of the gods. So what does that sound like to you? I mean, to me, that sounds like modern, what we would describe as modern UFO
An
activity.
Abduction. Yeah. Going on a spacecraft, getting probed.
That's right. But this is Pharaoh Tutmosis III. And by the way, he was the one who also set up the first schools of teaching alchemy. I mean, we found we know where his alchemy lab was. We know where the giant crucibles were and everything else that he was using.
So fact number 1 is this passage is in his writings. That basically, correct, if you translate it out of the archaic language that you were reading it in, I was sitting around, there were circles of fire in the sky. Everyone laid down on the ground because we thought it was gods. They took me up into their spaceship and showed me the ways of heaven, showed me the ways of their spaceships or whatever they have in the sky. That's what happened to me, and I'm the king, so you have to believe me. That's fact number 1.
Exactly right.
Fact number 2, we've got writing inside the Great Pyramid that no one knows what it is. Fact number 3, those things were built long before we think they were built, and they would be impossible to build today with our technology. The blocks are so big and heavy, and you can't fit a credit card between them now. And this is 10,000 years ago.
Yeah, and that's not even like some of the stones in the relieving chambers of the Great Pyramid. You're talking, they're talking up to 70 tons. So not just the 2 or 3 tons that are used on the main blocks, but the relieving stones are weigh considerably bit more.
Yeah, and even if you put
someone was even able to get them up there and lower them into place is
exactly. There's no way to harness enough human energy onto one piece of rock to move it when it's that big and heavy. So how did they do it? What did they use? Was it, I've heard some people think it was acoustics, that some sort of frequency lifts it. Some people think there was a substance related to alchemy. What does your, and you've written many books, we'll get to those later, where people can read these theories and these stories in depth. But I thought it would be interesting to give people basically an overview of an alternate history of the Earth, of how it may have really happened. So how did they build the pyramids, and who did it?
Well, there are a couple different things they used. I mean, without a doubt. I mean, you can use levers to move, large blocks of stone, but that's not going to allow you to lift them up to the areas that you need to and put them in place. Some of it was probably, honestly, was utilizing hydraulics, where they flooded the inside of the pyramid, and they attach balloons to some of the stones to allow them to kind of rise up into, and then they can just put them in place. But some of it has to do with, I absolutely believe this. It has to do with a certain alchemical substance that we know the Egyptians were manufacturing, and it was passed on within the Hebrew mysteries. It's still preserved. It was preserved within the European alchemical mysteries right through the Middle Ages, and it's something that even today, NASA and the U.S. Department of Energy's Argonne National Laboratories in Chicago, as well as their Oak Ridge Laboratories in Tennessee, and the Niels Bohr Institute of University of Copenhagen, have all been, experimenting around with. And this substance, what it is it's in the ancient world, it was referred to as what is it, or in Hebrew, mana. Mana in Hebrew means what is it.
Well, that's in the Bible, right? Mana.
That's in the Bible. Yes. In fact, it seems to be, the mysteries of Moses witnessing God as a burning bush, and all the burnt sacrifices that are required in the Old Testament by the Hebrew priests, and then also in the New Testament, where it makes reference to hidden white stone and manna. This mana, which means what is it, it is a special substance that you're able to extract out of just about everything, to be honest. But it's large concentrations of it are in salt water, and also in certain plants that tend to suck it up more. And
And from
this
space, it looks
powder,
like our planet is nothing but salt water, right? We have
yeah, that's right.
70% of the
Exactly
planet
right.
is water. We must have, that looks very sexy to someone that's looking for mana, I would think.
That's exactly right. And what it ultimately, what it is it's monoatomic atoms that are in a suspended in a state in which what's referred to as a Cooper pair. The electrons on the atom form what's called a Cooper pair, where they enter into a high spin state. And when it does this, it doesn't appear as anything when you test it. So you can do spectroscopic analysis to it. It doesn't show up as anything. You can do a burn analysis on it. It doesn't show up as anything. So hence why it was called mana, or what is it?
What is
because
it?
it doesn't show up as everything. But when you, it's very interesting when you subject this substance to a weak electromagnetic field, it tends to lose gravity. It tends to become weightless, and it causes the container that's holding it to also become weightless. So you can
So
take
if you had like
you
a
can,
Tupperware thing filled with
mhm.
mana, and you pass a magnet near it, it would float in the air?
Yes. Yeah, but yeah, it's an electromagnetic field. I mean, so or an electrostatic field, and what it does is it it causes the container. So if you have a container filled with mana, and then the same container filled with nothing, the container filled with mana will actually weigh less than the container filled with nothing. And this seems to be tied into a the technology that was being used, because we find the same terminology all over the ancient world. For example, in the ancient Sumer, the word for a flying craft in the ancient Sumerian was shimana. So there's that word mana again, shimana. In the ancient Vedic tradition, it was referred to as vimana.
That's in
But
India,
again,
right?
that's in India, but you have the mana part of it again. In the Buddhist and Hindu traditions, this white stone was referred to as mani as opposed to mana. So you see it sometimes being referred to as sintamani, or you find it in like the Tibetan um, prayer of Om Mani Padme Hum, where the mani is being emphasized.
And this is something that can
And
be synthesized through alchemy. I mean, can people do it today,
yes,
or is this some sort of secret from the old world that cannot be replicated today?
no, it can be done today. I mean, it's actually what it is. It's these monoatomic atoms come from platinum metals. And so you can take gold, for example, and you can convert it into this monoatomic powder. And this monatomic powder has these strange qualities. And and it's why, alchemists have always believed that Moses in the Torah, or the Old Testament, was an alchemist, because he burned the golden calf into a powder. And for forever, scientists looked at that and they said, "Oh, this is proof that the Bible's full of hooey, because everyone knows that the gold melts; it doesn't turn into a powder.
Uh-huh.
But if you do the special process to it, it will turn into a powder." And it may be, by the way, if we look at within the Torah, we also find, where was manna stored? It was stored within the Ark of the Covenant. And the Ark of
Right.
the Covenant was this object that weighed several tons. We know, based on the descriptions of it, the amount of gold and everything, it would have weighed several tons, and yet two people could carry it with rods.
Right. All the pictures you see, it's two guys carrying it like a beer of some kind.
That's right. And we also know, based on how the ark was built, it was like a giant capacitor, electrostatic capacitor. So it would be generating the electrostatic field that's needed to activate the monoatomic atoms that are within it, which would in turn make it weightless.
Very light.
That's right. And if we look at some of the Ethiopian texts, like the Keber Ganask, which is a text about King Solomon, it says that King Solomon actually had a flying ship that he used to fly around in.
Yeah, it's all over the Bible and ancient readings from different cultures. It just seems like historians have always said, oh, if they're describing an angel or something flying in the sky, it's a metaphor. But if they're describing an eye for an eye, then that's actually happened. So basically, all these facts have been hiding in plain view for thousands of years, and people have not synthesized them into what really happened. I think part of that is ego. I think until very, very recently, it's been impossible for the human race to conceive of a superior intelligence to us, right? We're the smartest animals on the planet. We invented fire. We invented the wheel. Look at us. We're the seniors. Yeah. We're the quarterback on the football team. But we're like ants, if you want to compare it to what is probably hanging out elsewhere in the galaxy, and that's alien life. So is there a connection, or what is that? Clearly there is a connection. What is the connection, do you think, between, first of all, folks, if you're just tuning in and you're listening to this, I would not blame you if you thought that our guest, the esteemed author Timothy Hogan, was a nut job, right? The stuff that he's saying to the uninitiated sounds insane and impossible. But so far, everything he has said today are things that you can look up yourself in the Bible. And if you understand that there's a different meaning to some of the things that they were saying, it makes it pretty obvious. So I think the jump to finding that really many of the stories in the Bible that are talking about gods and angels are really referring to off-planet, what we would call today aliens, visitors from another planet or another solar system, who, if you don't even know how to use fire, and someone lands in a spaceship with a ray gun and is able, you know what? Get in a time machine and take your iPhone back 100 years, 200 years. They'd burn you as a witch. You know,
That's
any
true.
who is it? Bradbury? Who said any sufficiently Kubrick or Arthur C. Clarke? Any sufficiently advanced technology will appear as magic. So
Yeah, I mean, when Nikola Tesla demonstrated remote control boats at the Chicago's World's Fair back in the late 1800s,
1893.
1893, people thought it was witchcraft.
Right.
They couldn't understand how he could be making these boats, these remote control boats moving. And how long after that before we had remote control things? Almost 100 years.
Right.
You know, so
people are afraid of change. People are afraid of these kind of ideas because with every advance of science, if you go back in the day when the church thought that the earth was the center of the universe, every advance in science has pushed man further into the darkness and into the margins, right? We're not the center of anything. We're not even the center of the Milky Way. We're just a planet with some people on it who can't get along very well. And to think that we are the be-all and end-all, I think is the ultimate narcissism, really.
I agree with you there, yeah.
So let's talk aliens. Let's talk who are these beings and why do they come here? They must delight in screwing around with us and, you know, planting these little seeds of weirdness and then just going away. Are they still here? Are aliens still among us? Did they come and did they go? And why didn't they come back? What do the ancient mystery schools, the Freemasons, the Rosicrucians, the Knights Templar, what do they know about that we don't know as the general public? Give me a secret.
Well, I mean, I can tell you from a Templar standpoint and a Rosicrucian standpoint that they do have doctrines that basically say, look, humanity is being prepared to enter into a galactic community, but until we're able to get along with each other down here, they're not going to let us. They're not going to let us participate.
Join their club. I don't blame them. Would you
Yeah,
let us into a club?
why would they? You know.
No.
Yeah, we're kind of like the rough. I don't know, the rough side of town. You know, that people roll up their windows and try to avoid.
Right. Yeah, you wouldn't bring us to the country club.
Our
right?
reputation.
Yeah, you wouldn't do that. We'd be peeing in the pool and stealing stuff, forks out of the commissary. No, we're far too primitive, if you will. So we need to raise our game as humanity to be admitted into this galactic federation. Is that the deal?
Yeah. So the idea is that, we have to be able to start getting along with each other. We have to be able to be greater custodians of our own planet, of the animals and the other living beings on our planet, before they're going to let us go cause havoc throughout the universe itself.
Well, it seems like every year there are more and more videos of alien encounters. The Air Force or the Navy released some encounters of the Tic Tacs out in the ocean. There was a video March 1st. Play that video there. March 1st, these lights what they were. Are you there, Tim? Timothy?
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
I was muted.
Explain to me what you think these lights are that so many people saw. This was March 1st. This is 5 days ago, 6 days ago.
Well, I can tell you definitively that myself and a number of other people were in Las Vegas at the time, and we were doing exercises to bring them down.
You were calling aliens?
Yes.
Yes. So you're taking credit for these lights?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I mean, they're not lights. They're other crafts out there, but we certainly can bring them down. I mean,
how do you do that?
They have these beings out there. They have some form of a consciousness technology interface, and there are certain exercises that we can do to call them down, to basically draw a map showing them where we are, and to bring them down, and then they show up, and we can exchange light signals or whatever with them. But so far they haven't, at least any group I've been involved in, they haven't landed and taken us away anywhere. But yeah,
so you're saying you're communicating
down
with off-world beings and sending them, are these telepathic psychic messages you're sending, or you've commandeered a radio station? How do you reach alien intelligence?
Kind of, we set up a ritual with a group of people, so there's a collective consciousness that's involved, and we direct our thoughts out, and we basically it's like a psychic process, and it sounds crazy, but it works. So,
well, as people ask me all the time about my psychic gift, and they think it's weird or strange, everyone has the ability to use their psychic gift. Some people have more, just like, Henry Aaron was a better ball player than Don Zimmer. That's just the way it was. But they both played baseball. Yeah. And psychic energy is an outgrowth of your consciousness and your physical body. So anyone, in theory, can use it. And it only makes sense that if psychic energy resides in the consciousness, the part that can leave the body while you're alive and leaves the body when you die, maybe every being in the universe has that consciousness. So is it that the part of us that leaves our body is communicating with the consciousness of these aliens on some sort of level plane of communication?
I believe so. I believe there's a seed of consciousness that's within everybody, that's connected to every other conscious being on the planet and the universe. I really believe that.
Like one tree with billions of leaves. We're all connected. Yeah. We're each a leaf, but we're all connected to the same tree.
Yeah, and if you're just identifying yourself as a leaf, you're never going to see, the rest of the tree. You may see other leaves around you in your little area of the tree, but you're not seeing the bigger picture,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, why is this a secret? Why has this been kept a secret? Yes. Why not just tell everyone?
Because in history's past, you were burnt at the stake if you, if you talked about this stuff, or if you showed things that were beyond the realm of experience of most people, you would be considered a threat. You would either be whoever was in charge would either try to force you to work for them, and if you didn't do it, they would kill you.
Like Merlin, the sorcerer, right? Or Mickey in Fantasia.
Example. Yep. Or they would see you as a threat to the dogma of the day, and would, burn you at the stake for it. And we haven't gotten that far away from that, to be totally honest.
We have not.
We like to think of ourselves as totally advanced and free thinking, and but it still happens,
So what, personally, again, folks who are tuning in, trying to put the connection to what we normally do on this program, which is psychic readings and delving into the psychic and what Timothy is saying. I think the common denominator is the playing field on where this communication happens. It's happening in the consciousness realm. It's where all of these beings can communicate. And I can see where, if you were a king, why would you want some guy like you running around saying, hey, we last past when we die, we go somewhere else. It's all consciousness. This is all garbage. You don't have to pay your taxes. He's not really the king. He's just a guy in a fancy hat. You're a troublemaker. You're Galileo.
Yeah, right.
You're anyone who bucks the system. Martin Luther King. Anyone who bucks the system is a danger to the people that hold the reins of power.
Yeah, and if you really, Plato.
I
his
love
famous,
Plato.
yeah.
That, and what's the other one where you put it in the newspaper and you peel it up and then there's the cartoon. Silly putty. Silly putty. Yeah, I love silly putty too.
Yeah, are newspapers still around? Oh,
I don't think so. It doesn't work if you do it on the screen of your computer. Kids
Yeah,
today,
that's right.
they'll never know the joy of getting a backwards Peanuts cartoon in your hand.
Yes. No, but Plato, he proposed that all reality, we're born into this world, in his analogy of the cave, his allegory of the cave. He says, well, look, we're born into this world, looking at shadows on a cave wall, and we mistake those shadows for reality. And every once in a while, somebody breaks free, and they go outside. And they go, oh my gosh, there's this whole other world out here. And they go back and they try to tell the people who are looking at the shadows on the cave wall, and all the
No, we don't
people
want to hear it. No.
they're like, no, they think you're nuts.
Right.
They don't want to believe it, and that's just the way it is. I mean,
So for people in our audience who want to get out of the cave and experience this reality that we've been proposing and I think validating and discussing here, is that the way to that knowledge is through these secret societies that you are a member and have written about in your various books? Is that the best way for someone? If what people have heard for the last hour here intrigues them and they want to find out if you're making it up or where it comes from, how would you start? What would you recommend people do?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would recommend. I mean, there's certainly a number of schools out there. I mean, certainly Freemasonry is a school that it's not going to teach you about UFOs, but it's alluded to within the rituals. I mean, without giving away any secrets, I mean, there's a really famous part of Masonic third degree ritual involving a ship of Solomon that ends up going from Jerusalem to Ethiopia and back to Jerusalem, and people have always wondered, like, well, this doesn't even make any sense. You can't sail on a boat from Jerusalem to Ethiopia. I mean, why would this even be in Masonic ritual? It doesn't make any sense. But when you understand texts like the Nebuchadnezzar that I talked about Solomon's flying ship that went from Ethiopia to Jerusalem and back, then yeah, it makes sense. So there's a number of things that are within the tradition. Certainly, the Templar Collegia, which I represent, teaches people about, gives people exercises they can do to build their to awaken their consciousness to other possibilities and to
expand
do
their psychic abilities, basically.
Expand their psychic abilities, yep, and not just to connect with each other, but to connect ourselves with the bigger universe out there.
You've written.
There's other groups, Rosicrucian groups, that do the same thing. So it's out there. It's been underground because
if it's dangerous. And I think what
right.
One thing that the internet is doing is it's democratizing knowledge. Now there's someone like you in cities and countries all over the world, and you can get together, and now you're a force because it's not just one guy, and it's harder to shut up 300 guys saying the same things compared to one guy. And I hope anyway that the world is starting to turn and become more and more open to this. Of the books that you've written, Timothy, what's your entry-level book for people who want to begin to learn more about this? Which of your best-selling books would you recommend people start with?
I would recommend. I have a book called Revelation of the Holy Grail, and it's written under a pen name. The pen name is Chevalier Emrys, and that book basically it explores the legends of the Holy Grail, but and their influence throughout history. But it also gets into all this stuff. I mean, it gets into talking about UFOs. It talks about stuff with the pyramids. It talks about monoatomic elements. It talks about reincarnation. All of these subjects that we're discussing right now.
Because they're all really related. If you take the view from space, no pun intended, all these things,
Yeah.
it's consciousness. And a human's current understanding of consciousness is very parochial and small-minded. And as we expand the understanding of our consciousness and how it may connect with others in the universe, I think it elevates us as a species. And hopefully one day soon, we'll be able to join the Galactic Federation, get those cool uniforms, and learn more secrets about the universe and the true reality of who we are as human beings. Timothy, it's been fascinating to speak with you. I hope you'll come back in the future and maybe we can take some calls from people. But your knowledge base, and again, folks, don't take his word for it. Everything he's talked about today is readily available in the Bible or in many other writings. It's just it's a matter of looking at the pieces of the puzzle in a different way, and they fold together very much. Timothy Hogan, thank you so much for being on the program tonight. I really appreciate your time. Did you have a good time?
Thank you. It was fantastic. I love it. I'd love to be on again, and I really enjoyed chatting with you.
Where can people find you online? Do you have a website or a Facebook page?
Yeah, they can find me on Facebook. I have a Timothy Hogan author page, and I have a regular page, and certainly you can find all my books on Amazon. If you just Google Timothy Hogan author or Timothy Hogan Templar, you'll find you'll find a number of lectures that I've given around the world, and also all my books.
Yeah, and all of it's fascinating, folks. You'll really enjoy it, and I really enjoyed honored your presence here tonight, Timothy. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be back next week with another mind-bending show. We'll take your phone calls. We'll do your psychic readings. I think Psychic Ray LA will be back on the program next week. But until then, thank you once again, Timothy Hogan. I'm Dr. Lars Dingman, the iTunes Psychic, and I will see you